It was excellent. We visited with some patrons, actually, a small group of symphony supporters, and actually we saved our cooking for Saturday. And when I say we, I say my wife saved the beautiful cooking for Saturday. I provided.
She's a great cook.
She's a great cook. I saved opening a bottle of very nice wine, kind of my specialty. But Kanoe, how was your holiday weekend? Restful?
Yeah, we ended up spending a lot of time on the phone. Calling family and friends. But the fun part is we got a Hawaii restaurant card in the mail about 3 or 4 days before Thanksgiving, and we were like, wow, let's go use it. So we went off to a Chinese restaurant in Kaneohe, and we got our turkey from there. So I didn't cook. I didn't cook any turkey this year. So and they had everything. They had the gravy, the mashed potatoes, the salad, and all. So thank you. Thank you to the government for, for the restaurant card. That's what gave me my Thanksgiving.
Well, and to be able to support another local business.
Absolutely.
I think it's really forward thinking of our community here to take that on. So wonderful. Well, we always like to start at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
What happened at the beginning? Okay, here's what happened.
Yeah.
Is that we were concocting or preparing for this upcoming show next week, and Dave had this brilliant idea of, expanding the repertoire, and you told me, we should serve or honor the culture that is here in Hawaii, and you had just met Kanoe a couple months ago. And you had this brilliant idea. We have all this beautiful music, Handel, Piazzolla, Vivaldi. Why don't we finish the evening with some beautiful hula dancing? And so hence your presence here today. Is that what happened at the beginning, Dave?
Yeah, we can start there. I wanted to go even further back,
further.
That's a good place to start because it really explains how we got to this point here this week.
Okay, let's backtrack even further.
You want to backtrack
Sure.
even further?
Sure.
So, tell us everything about you, starting from the very beginning.
Me?
Yes.
Backtrack about me?
Yeah, all the way back. Yeah.
Gosh, that was a long time ago. Well, I'm born here. I'm from Manoa Valley, and went to Roosevelt High School, took hula with Hula Halau o Maiki, ran for Miss Hawaii in 1973. I had a career in modeling for a while, and then in 1977, got a job dancing one night a week at the Halekulani Hotel. And that turned into something for the next 44 years. Don't do the math, and I won't tell you how old I was then. So for 44 years plus, I danced at the Halekulani Hotel House Without a Key.
Wow.
That's how
Dave,
far back.
I'm sorry, Kanoe. Dave, of course, the Halekulani is very dear to the Hawaii Symphony.
It is very dear to the symphony. One of our biggest supporters, the title sponsor of our Masterwork series year after year. One of the many reasons we are able to attract the guest artists that we do here in Hawaii with the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra is because everyone wants that experience of playing with the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra, but also staying at the Halekulani and going down to have drinks at sunset and to see you.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Kanoe, I wanted to ask you, we were chatting before the show tonight, and you grew up you said a typical Hawaiian family where everyone played music. Can you tell us what it was like to grow up and hear the radio and play music and dance hula?
Well, so I have a father who was from Wailuku, Maui, and he was a seaman on the tugboats, and he played guitar and ukulele, and as my brothers and sisters and I were growing up, he always insisted that we learn how to play music. So everyone in the family, except for me, can play an instrument. So when the family gets together, it's really just sit around in the living room or sit around in the back porch and just whip out the guitar, ukulele, and just play music. And of course, my father, being that I didn't play music or anything, he'd go, dance. That's all he'd say, dance. So, danced, right? And everything was very spontaneous. And when we weren't playing music all the time on the weekends, then there was always music playing in our house. There was always the Hawaiian radio, Hawaiian music station going. And I think it was through that, of course, my appreciation for Hawaiian music, but also the lyrics to the songs, the stories that are in Hawaiian music, constantly with me. So that's the background.
You mentioned one of your main, I just read somewhere, you kumu hula, anti Maikii had an influence on you. Is that where you learned? I'm just wondering, I guess when your father said dance, it was all instinctual, and then did you have to actually be taught?
It was a bit instinctual, but yes, I had to be taught. But I actually, my mother actually kind of forced me to go to hula class. I was sort of a naughty teenager, 13 years old, and I sort of wanted to stay home and watch TV. Sure. But my mother said, you will go to hula, and you will take your two sisters and watch over them while you're in hula. And so I went. And this was back in the day when Hula Halau Omaiki was on the corner of Ke'eaumoku and King Street. Do you know where that is? There's a
King Street and corner of what?
King and Ke'eaumoku.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know it's like there's a park and the police station is right there. Okay.
Yes. And there used to be a piano shop a little bit next to the park.
Little bit down.
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, that's where I first studied hula. And I must say, I went for the first time to hula. I didn't want to go. But after 1 hour of hula with that teacher, I fell in love with hula. And I fell in love with my teacher. And my eyes were opened. Just through that one lesson, I started to put together the world around me, Hawaii and the world around me, this life of living here in Hawaii and the music. Just in 1 hour, I made the connection and have been in love with hula ever since. So I fought it going in, but whoop, I was sold after 1 hour of class.
And it just tells everyone how important your first teacher is in anything. I mean, you when you go to university, you have those famous, renowned doctorate professor, and they get all the recognition. But very often, the first teacher that you have plays such an important role. Dave, would you agree with me in your own experience as a musician, as a music student?
Absolutely. There's that teacher reverence I feel like we almost have. And I'm curious, were there those people throughout your life? And are there still people that you respect as teachers in your tradition?
Oh yes, because I've taken a dance class. I've taken ballet and tap and jazz. And each one of them I respect very, very much. I think what makes a really good teacher is someone that has enthusiasm for his or her craft and then passes that enthusiasm on to you, which is exactly what my first teacher did.
And I'm sure you're passing on your legacy.
I try.
I wanted to, we'll get back to hula dancing in just a moment, but you were also telling me a very interesting story is that the Hawaii Symphony, of course, plays classical music. We play all kinds of music, but a lot of classical music. And tell us about your experience growing up in a family where you play Hawaiian music and where you dance. Tell us about how you started to feel a connection, or how classical music made its path to your home.
Oh, Well, when I first started working, and that would have been about, I was 14 or 15 years old, you know, earning your first bit of money, right? The way I would spend it is to go to the record store. And back then I was buying a lot of LPs. Of course it was like, you know, Beatles, Motown, Young Rascals.
I like Motown.
All that. But you know, I had this curiosity about classical music, and it was not music that we had in our house. And I remember the first time I brought home some classical music albums, LPs, and my parents were like, "What is that?" And I said, "Oh, well, it's Mozart." "Oh, really?" So, you know, well, just play it up in your room, okay? Don't play.
It's a slippery slope once they start listening to Mozart.
Right. Don't play it down here in the living room. But that was my first album I bought. I just had a curiosity about it. And I think how it came to me is I must have been listening or fiddling around with the radio. And you know when you're turning the dial and you're like trying to tune in for something, and then I heard classical music and I stopped. And I started to listen to it. Of course, I had no idea what I was listening to. But that, I think, piqued my curiosity. And so the next time when I had a little change, I went and bought my first album, which was a Mozart. And I was saying that my next album I bought was Baroque music, guitar, Julian Bream.
Wonderful.
And after that, I even bought some Baroque harpsichord music. Which I
One of my favorites, and everyone that watches this is probably tired of hearing about my love for the harpsichord.
Oh, God,
and I have one
love
we have one in the HSO office actually, and we'll occasionally go over and play on it. It's a beautiful instrument, I think. So.
it is beautiful, and we don't hear it often enough.
Well, come to the HSO office.
I will,
any day of
and
the
you
week.
better be playing it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so probably when you were tuning into the radio and listening to classical music, you were probably tuning into Hawaii Public Radio.
I probably was, and I had no idea what I was doing.
Dave, do we have people the ability to ask questions?
We do. Thank you, Iggy, for that. We're actually getting a few questions and comments already. So for those who would like to join in the conversation tonight, depending on what platform you're on, you can put it in the comment box, or you're able to text the number below here on the screen. And we'll see your messages one way or another, and happy to take questions, and would love to have you in the conversation tonight. And I have a question that's already come in here, and it actually comes from my wife, a student of yours.
Hi, Catherine.
Yeah. So what is, talking about growing up and dancing and how has throughout your life, how has what hula means to you changed? Has it always been the same throughout your life, or is it something that has meant different things at different stages of your life?
Boy, that sounds like a Miss Hawaii question, one of those really hard Miss America questions. You really got to think hard. Okay. Well, as I said, when I first learned, and I was age 13, it was an opening of my eyes for the first time to this culture, And I know you say, well, but you were dancing hula at home, and you guys were playing music and all that, but no, I think when you're 13 and you started to realize, that truck over there says Ilima Tours, and Ilima is our flower of the island of Oahu. Okay, got it. And this is a song I'm learning about the Ilima flower, and you just start to put these things together. Okay, so that was first, like eye-opener. And I think as I got older and I got my first job at the Halekulani, for me, entertaining visitors 6 nights a week, it was very important for me to expand my repertoire. So I really dove into it, learning all kinds of dances. Hapa haole, stuff from the Hapa haole genre. So that's, you know
Tell
what
us.
Hapa haole is, yeah?
Please tell us.
Okay, those are Hawaiian songs done in the English language. And the first Hapa haole songs were written sometime around 1915, 1916. And even Hapa haole has their own genres, you know, within the different eras of our Hawaiian history. But anyway, I made sure that I taught myself these songs. I learned the lyrics, I learned who the composers were, I learned a little bit about the history of each song, just so that as I danced it, I had more of a feeling and knew what I was dancing about. Okay, so that's the Hapa haole side. And then for the Hawaiian side, again, learning my Hawaiian songs, learning the lyrics, learning what they mean. I don't speak Hawaiian, you know, so I'm not a Hawaiian speaker, but learning what the lyrics mean so that I can correctly express in my dancing the meaning of the song. And I think when you correctly express, the audience gets it, you know? They get the message. Okay, so that's the next phase.
That's great.
Okay, that's the next phase. And that phase was a long one because, you know, starting to work at the Halekulani and entertaining for, as I said, 40 plus years, that's a long period. And now that we are in COVID and I'm not entertaining, I have been teaching hula on Zoom. And now that I have students, I feel a responsibility to make sure that I totally understand what I'm talking about and that I totally review the music and get them to appreciate it and them to be enthusiastic about it. So my enthusiasm is still there. And in fact, Iggy, it's gotten deeper. So you were talking about, you know,
The evolution.
the evolution of my appreciation. I think it's gotten deeper, you know, through this COVID period, because I have to study it more, and then I have to teach others.
Self-reflection. So when I teach music, or when my colleagues do, we insist on the students playing and learning the right way, you know, to be always genuine and authentic and true to yourself, and not just like fake it. It's just a pet peeve of ours. And so when we hear, sometimes I see violinists, they can be really famous, they can be very popular, they can make a lot of money. But there's something in me that tells me, you know, it's a great artist, famous, but I just don't find that person very genuine in what they do. I find them a little bit commercial. Do you find that it's very important for you as a teacher to teach your students? You have to dance to hula the right way. It has to feel genuine.
Of course, yes, you have to teach them to dance the right way, but at the same time, when you're teaching someone to dance hula, you have to teach them to connect connect to the music, connect to the lyrics, connect to the meaning from inside, so that you can express it out. And not just only do motions, yeah, but to actually express whatever the intent of the composer was. Okay, so I find that's what I'm trying to teach more. Yes, of course, you're trying to teach people to know all the steps and to know all the motions and to dance gracefully and to connect your movements so that it's pleasing for the audience. But I think most important is getting them to connect to the intent of the composer and then express it out.
You know, just to show my full ignorance, as Dave and I were trying to figure out a repertoire, I just had this piece of mind I really like. It's just for violin, and it's you know, by an Argentinian composer. And it was just, just violin, beautiful violin music, and no words, no singing. And I'm like, wow, it would be great if Kanoe would dance to this piece of music. No lyrics, and little did I know that, the lyrics in hula dancing are just such a crucial part of it.
It is.
Is it, the Hawaiian chant is called the oli? Or?
Hawaiian chant is oli, yes.
And that also is part of the Hawaiian tradition. Am I right to understand that there's I read it like maybe 10 minutes before the show. There are like two the early, I'm sorry, I got to read, but there's the hula kahiko, which is the first kind of hula dancing, and then there's the hula awana.
Yes, so hula kahiko.
Can you tell us a little bit more?
Okay. Well, I'm not the total expert, but I can tell you simply the hula kahiko is, kahiko means old, okay, so old hula or ancient hula. And today, when we think of hula kahiko, we think of hula from the pre-Western contact time, okay? And awana is more, awana, the word awana means to wander, okay? So hula awana is considered our modern hula, which probably actually started around the time of Kalakaua, right? Because Kalakaua was a very, very innovative ruler, and he was the one that brought hula back.
Because it was banned for a while? Or?
It was banned for a while, yeah. And so he wanted to bring hula back, and so it was performed publicly. So awana is considered modern, but the word awana means to wander. So what's the difference? Well, in kahiko, usually it's a little more static, the dancing. The word that has often been used is bombastic. I didn't use it, but I see it being used. In awana, when we wander, it means, you hula from right to left, you go forward and back, you use up the stage. And that, in that case, you're doing awana, you're wandering. But that is what we now consider modern.
So before I moved to Hawaii, I admit that the first time I was here in January and we saw the performance at House Without a Key, I was so moved by it because I had this perception growing up on the mainland of what hula was. And it was always, it was almost this caricature. And it was, the grass skirt and all these sorts of things that we saw in popular culture. And I was so surprised and just delighted to really learn about the history of this and how did we get there? How did we get from... what was it in popular culture that took us in a very different direction?
Well, first I want to tell you, I'm an entertainer and I dance in Waikiki. Mm-hmm. So I wear grass skirts and I love to wear tea leaf skirts, okay? And I love dancing hapahauli and I like to see an audience smile. So my dancing might be considered very commercial, okay? So let's first start there. But now let me answer your question. How did it get there? Probably when hula first started going abroad, when, Kalakaua was the first king to send a troupe of dancers and musicians to the mainland to promote Hawaii. And they danced in fairs and expositions, county fairgrounds and things. And I think the first time that the mainland people saw that, it was just something very different. And it was like, wow, what is this? And perhaps from there was a desire to imitate that. Maybe that's where it started. I think then when Hollywood discovered Hawaii, and this would have been in the 1930s, the glamour that the costume designers of of Hollywood created these incredible costumes, I think, and the music that they had in the movies created this idea that, Dave, you're from the Midwest, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what you saw,
Right.
and that's what you grew up with, and
Yeah.
that was in your mind of what hula is.
Yeah.
So did that answer your
It
question?
did,
I think
yeah.
that's where that might have come
Absolutely.
from.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was great. You talk about, hula really being exposed to the world back in the early 1900s. Nowadays, though, with the technology and with Zoom and all those things, your reach is far beyond Hawaii, right?
I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that and how, you talked about really becoming a teacher through the pandemic here and that opportunity. Where are your students coming from these days?
Well, I actually just started teaching hula here in 2019. And when the pandemic came, of course, everything had to close down. And I was like, oh, okay, what do I do now? And one of my students here said, why don't you try Zoom? And I'm like, what is that?
Like many of us.
Yeah, it's like, what is that? How do we do that? Okay, so my husband and I worked on that. We turned our living room into a broadcast studio and researched Zoom. And I put it out on Facebook that I was teaching hula on Zoom, and I got a response from people all over the United States and Japan. And so now that's where I even had people from Europe respond as well. Of course, it's hard for them to come to
Yes.
class because
It's a 12-hour, 11-hour.
It's a 12 or 11 hour. You have to be pretty dedicated, right? I had people calling from Italy, so that's what's beautiful, is that it can reach people all over the world. These days, I teach students, as I said, from all around the U.S. mainland. I also have students that I was teaching from 2013. I was teaching students in Japan. So now I'm able to reach them on a regular basis every month. So yes, so the Japan and U.S. mainland.
But my understanding is not the first time you've had to sort of reinvent yourself. I think I was looking at an interview you had with Leslie Wilcox, and you mentioned how maybe years back when your husband couldn't fly anymore because of Aloha Airlines being gone, you had to create something, and you created a digital content or something of that fact.
Yeah, Iggy, we were all desperate. Desperation drives you. No, so what we did is my husband and I created a DVD of my dancing. But what the focus of the DVD is, it's not a how to hula DVD, so it is not instructional. It's a form of entertainment. And I dance 12 of my favorite hapahaole songs from the era of hapahaole music between 1916 and 1961. But again, I had to research the music, and I had all these favorites. I must have had 50 favorites, but I had to narrow it down to 12, so yes.
And at some point, the DVDs were not the choice of customers. You had to learn how to make them downloadable?
No, the DVDs were happening at that time. Yeah. No, and as a matter of fact, we distributed our own and sold them all over Hawaii and the mainland and everything. So, in fact, we're still selling it.
Great.
Sorry. You were speaking about your husband, and I promise that we won't go into your love life. But
we can, maybe.
Your husband was one of the audience members who was mesmerized by your dancing at the Halekulani. Is that correct?
Oh gosh, are we going to go there?
Let's look at the camera.
Are we going to go there?
Talk to your husband.
Oh gosh. Yes, my husband at the time was sitting in the audience watching me dance. I did not see him, when I dance, I try to engage the audience. I try to look the audience, people in the audience, in the eye. And so I really, I'm dancing to the audience all the time. And my husband was sitting in the audience, and he thought that I was dancing just for him. And I wasn't. I didn't see him at all. So afterwards, he came up to me, this haole guy, and he goes, "Hi, I'm the guy you were dancing for all evening long. I just want to say hello." And I'm like, "Who are you? I don't know who you are. I've never seen you before in my life." Anyway, that was our introduction.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
It's true that as a performer, we have the stage light on us, and it's really hard to see the audience because there's backlight.
Yes, that's just it. You know, you have the stage, you have the lights in your eyes, and so what I do is I try to really focus out into the audience, but you really can't see the people.
Yeah.
You know?
It's happened to Iggy so many times.
Yes, they all fall in love with you, huh? They want to meet you backstage.
Well, I mean, I have to say that when we announced that Kanoe was going to be on the show, my wife said, "Oh yeah, I see Kanoe many times as an audience member attending the performances of the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra. So thank you very much for
you're welcome.
your support, and it's just great. And finally, we'll
yeah, I'm a
get to have
groupie.
you
I sit in the back.
stage.
I watch you.
You mentioned when you were putting the DVD together that you narrowed it down to 50 songs. Well, we have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
What is your favorite Hawaiian song? And second part, what is your favorite hula and why?
Oh gosh, there's so many. But first, what is my favorite Hawaiian song or Hapahali song?
This is Hawaiian song.
My favorite Hawaiian song. That is really hard. That is really hard. Putting me on the spot. Okay, so just recently I taught these hula workshops for my friends at Pa'i Foundation, and I picked 3 of my favorite songs. And I have many, but 2 of them, the Hawaiian songs. One, it was a song called Moani Ke Ala o Nā Pua Makahikina, written by Lina Machado. Absolutely love dancing that song. The other song was a song called Pua Mai Ole, written by Squeeze Kamana for his daughter. And then Hapahauli songs, well, I have many, but a song called Somewhere in Hawaii by Tony Tadaro. Okay. Mostly if you ask, well, what kind of genre do I like dancing? I love dancing in a tea leaf skirt. Absolutely love that swish, 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 and the smell of the tea leaves and the flowers and everything, and moving really fast. And so I like dancing tea leaf numbers, but I also love dancing songs from our monarchy, from the time of our monarchy. Songs written for Kalakaua or Queen Emma. So it's like there are different eras I like, different kind of costumes I love. Oh, it's so hard to narrow down songs that I love to dance.
Sorry, Dave.
Please,
it sounds like you were a natural performer. Love to perform for the audience. Did you find that you had this gift at home when you were dancing for your family, when your dad said dance, or did it come through the years of dancing?
Oh, no, I think I was born a ham. It was more like my father would go, "Okay, dance," and then after a while he'd go, "Okay, sit down." Yeah. Okay, so my family also, we used to put shows on for each other, you know. And my parents would be the audience, and my brothers and sisters would put on a whole show. And sometimes I had a sister who was the MC, I was the dancer, my brother and my other sister played music. So to perform was no problem. You know, I don't feel ashamed or embarrassed at all. You know, in fact, I often say sometimes it's harder to dance just for one person sitting there. I have an easier time dancing for an entire auditorium than just one person. It's actually a little more nerve-wracking. Don't you find that? Sometimes if there's
yes.
just one person just staring at you,
It's
I can
true.
do it, but
When
it's not as-
sometimes when the environment is a little small and you're at the gathering and people are maybe drinking and then they just put you on the spot and like.
But if they're drinking, it helps. You sound better.
Maybe.
We have another question about your interest in music, and you talked a little bit about your interest in classical music from a young age. Is there a composer that you are attracted to currently? Is there classical music that you really are drawn to?
Yes, I really like, and I don't even know how to say his name correctly. Sorry, but I just like his music.
I don't know. Sorry.
I like his music because I hear it all the time. Saint Saëns?
Yes.
Yes.
Even the French don't know how to say his name. His name is Saint-Saëns.
Saint-Saëns, okay.
But the French argue because some say it's supposed to be Saint-Saëns and some say it's supposed to be Saint-Saëns. So,
Okay.
who knows? So
that's the one.
Your pronunciation is just as good as any other French person, but yes.
That's the new guy I really like now. And I kind of went from Chopin and Debussy to
Great.
Saint-Saëns.
Saint-Saëns, yes.
Saint-Saëns, okay. Sorry.
Oh no, it's great.
Oh,
we
amazing.
we just did Carnival of the Animals a few weeks ago on one of our live programs, and there's a little bit of narration, some poetry that was written by Nash, right? He is the poet. And Aaron Salah actually read the narration in between each of the movements.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he did. Yes, absolutely. And in between some of them, as we were doing a stage change, Aaron was teaching me to say some of the animals in Hawaiian as well. So trying to make that connection for me with the language.
And what
here.
did you learn?
That there is no word for hippopotamus in Hawaiian.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Where do we? It's a tough transition to talk about hippopotamus to the next subject.
Yes,
I'm just not sure what we should talk
I didn't
about.
prepare for that. Hippopotami, yes.
But Kanoe, I just wanted to ask you a bit of nostalgia. What it was like, what Waikiki was like when you were in high school, as opposed to of course everyone knows it's hopefully it'll come back to a lot of business, but people who are nostalgic think there's maybe kind of a scent, something that's kind of maybe got lost with all the activity, the bustling activity that we all need these days.
So when I was in high school, it was my dream to dance in Waikiki, and at the time there were many, many shows. And International Marketplace was one of the places to go and get entertainment, and Waikiki, the whole strip, was filled with entertainment. By the time I started at the Halekulani in 1977, we still had entertainment. Wonderful shows and everything. One of the best shows ever were Brothers Casimiro in the Monarch Room. And of course, Tihati Productions had many wonderful shows all over Waikiki. And there was a lot of bars and places that you can go and listen to music. Okay, so you asked me, what was it like back then? So I noticed that it has gotten less and less, especially in the last 5 years. Way less places that offer entertainment, hula, Hawaiian music, definitely way less. Something
That's a
sad.
pity.
I hope that changes after COVID, and when we finally open up Waikiki, I hope we can have more in terms of Hawaiian entertainment.
Absolutely.
Was there a peak year in there where if you had the power to dial it back to a year when things were good for Waikiki.
Things were cooking?
Yeah, where things were cooking in a respectful way for culture and for entertainment, and still people getting that experience of Hawaii.
Okay, so I'm going to just say this because of my reading and research, because I probably wasn't allowed down in Waikiki back in this year, but I would say it was probably between 1957 and 1962. Would have been really great times in Waikiki, because this is when Hawaii was opening up to tourism. There was a great boom of travel. The 747s were coming here, and our airport was busier and busier. And our hotels were coming up like crazy. So I think that's when entertainment would have been fantastic. It was at its best, you know. The Dome, the Hilton Dome, there were so many showrooms.
Yes.
Now, like I said, I wasn't allowed outside of the house past 9 o'clock at night back then, but seems to me that's the time when entertainment was happening.
And some of my colleagues in the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra used to be on those shows.
Oh, yeah?
And they sort of ruled at that time where there was so much live music.
There
going on.
was a lot of live music. Let's hope it comes back.
Yes. Speaking of live music and singing, can you tell us a little bit? Next week you will be joined by Pomaikai Lyman,
Yeah.
the Keawe Lyman.
Her name, it's Pomaikai Keawe Lyman. That's Lyman.
Lyman.
Lyman, and Keawe is her maiden name. Pomaikai is very famous in the Hawaiian music community. Her grandmother was a very well-respected, yes, famous woman, Genoa Keawe. And Pomaikai herself has a beautiful soprano and is an excellent ukulele artist. And so she will be singing while I dance. And I gotta tell you, she is so excited.
We're all very excited.
To sing with you guys, to have you there. Wow, we're both really honored.
It's going to be a really unique program. We talked about this a little bit last week, but the program opens with the Messiah, something that was performed early on in London, and then we go to Italy with Vivaldi's Winter, and we go Mozart's Horn Concerto. He was probably in Germany at the time. Is that
most likely?
Most likely, Vienna maybe. And then we go on to Argentina with another rendition of Winter.
We go to Vivaldi,
Italy, and then
Argentina. Yes.
And then we come home to Hawaii here. So it's really a kind of a tour de force with this performance here. So it's exciting.
It is going to be very exciting. Kanoe, I wanted to ask you, as musicians, our hands are very important. And so when you see pianists, the best seats, you see a lot of people in the audience, they sit at a place in the audience where they can see the pianist and the keyboard. If you're violinist, you look at, on the vibrato, like this, like that. But the hands in hula dancing are also very important. Not just the grace, but, I'm not sure how to express it, but I've always been fascinated by how hula dancers use their hands.
So for me, my feeling is that hula is an whole body experience.
Of course.
Okay. So the entire body from head to toe expresses. But if you want to speak about the hands gesture one motion, say, but that one motion represents an entire phrase of thought. So it's not like sign language, where one thing means something and something else means another word. No, one motion could represent an entire feeling of thought and have a depth to it. So if you do that with your hands, but then also look at what the feet are doing, the body, the hips, okay? I sometimes tell my students, well, the hands represent a phrase of thought, but your body, your feet, your hips. It's like the emphasis behind the thought. Okay, like as if it was punctuation, maybe. Okay, so and again in Hawaiian lyrics, there are symbols in Hawaiian lyrics that are symbols of nature, but sometimes they often represent something else. It has another meaning, a deeper meaning, something we call kauna, which is like a secondary meaning. I'll give you, for example, rain. Okay, this motion, rain. Okay, so rain. The Hawaiians love water, wetness, dew, waterfalls, sea spray, things like that. And in Hawaiian songs, rain, this kind of thing, dew, is romantic. It is like a delicate, beautiful, romantic feeling, you know. To feel mist on your face or to see dew on a petal represents the composer's feeling for someone. Okay, so you may do a rain motion, but it isn't necessarily rain. Maybe you're talking about a feeling, you know, of romance. Okay. Am I going too deep?
No, it's absolutely fascinating.
Okay.
And,
So
are there, sorry, I just don't know too much, but are there similarities with the dancing you can find in other parts of the Pacific, you know, Tahiti, Samoa, Tonga, or is it rather different? Or?
I think there are certain similarities, and there's certain similarities to the words as well. I have to say that I'm not very well versed in the other cultures, so I'm afraid to answer that. But
that's okay.
But I respect it and very much enjoy watching it, but I don't know that much about it.
One of the things that we always like to ask on the show, or rather I like to ask on the show, is talking about the future of classical music, the future of the symphony. I'm going to change that a little bit this evening. What's the future of hula? Are there young girls, are there young boys that are taking hula and continuing on this tradition, and how is it changing? And yeah.
Oh, I think the future of hula is very strong. I think, first of all, the language in itself is being taught in the schools, and there are full charter schools that speak, everything is taught in Hawaiian. And through that is the dance and the culture as well. So I think it's only going to grow.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think the future is strong and bright.
Wonderful. We like to hear that. For classical music, too.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right, absolutely.
Yes. Now, with the performance coming up just a week from Saturday, most of the guests that we've had on our performances and on the show haven't performed for an audience, live or recorded, since March. Will this be one of your first performances for a live audience, albeit one at home?
Yes.
And you'll be performing to this dark wall in front of us. What?
So I hear.
Yeah.
Yes.
What will that be like?
There will be cameras, though.
Well, of course, we have our.
Well, I'm going to dance to the camera, guys. I'm going to dance to Donard and Greg and everybody there. Yeah. I'm going to treat them like they're my full audience right there.
So not a whole lot different.
No.
Yeah.
I look forward to it.
I'm sorry. How have you lived those past few months then? I know you
cooped up in my house. Really, don't go anywhere.
Finding Zoom, but was it difficult? Because I know as performers, we feed off the energy of our audiences, and when it's gone, you know, you feel like an animal in a cage. I know a lot of my colleagues, some of them who travel all the time. They just, you know, it was very, very difficult because you didn't have this energy that you could feed off. Was it difficult at first to not be able to dance?
Yes, it felt very strange. In fact, tonight was the first time I actually totally cleaned myself up to be seen in public. My husband says, "Do you feel like a star?" I said, "Oh gosh, yes." I threw on some makeup and some lipstick, and I put a dress on. This feels great, you know.
Yes, we have this
Threw
little
on some makeup, everything.
Yes.
this little oasis we have here
Yeah.
on Tuesday nights. Iggy and I have often commented how spoiled we feel that we get this little sense of
At
normalcy
this
in-
Hawaii theater.
at the Hawaii Theater.
But Iggy, you know, I told you I've been teaching hula on Zoom, so I am very, very thankful for all of my students because they allow me to continue dancing. I mean, of course I'm teaching, but of course through that teaching, you're listening to the Hawaiian music, you're dancing, you're talking about hula, you're talking about dance, and so no, I feel, you know, I feel blessed.
That's right.
Really blessed during this time. And I've become a better cook, too, during this time.
What does beginning hula look like?
What does beginning hula look like?
Yes, so perhaps, you know, say if there were a novice or two, what would be...
A kid or adult? Because that makes a lot of difference.
Yes, you're right.
Well, let's say adults. Let's say two novice adults, maybe
What
children
does
at
it
heart.
look like?
You know, what does that look like? What's the learning curve, especially if perhaps one's a musician, a very talented musician? I mean, in 8 minutes, what could we expect from someone like Iggy?
Oh, from Iggy. He has a look on his face like, don't go there.
He knew it was coming.
Usually the first thing you need to teach, of course, is proper posture for hula. But the next thing I think is important is how to get a sway going, which we call a ka'o. So what would the first 8 minutes look like
I
for a
think so.
beginner
Yeah.
is the beginner would be practicing how to do a sway. So they would be just in place, working on their posture, trying to keep their upper body still, and having getting the sway going to their hips. Yeah, that's what it would
So
look
the
like.
upper body has to be still, but the hips have to be supple,
Yes, the hips.
just like Dave.
Oh, I can. Are we gonna get?
Touche. Yes.
So do you find it that kids are more malleable? That is easier to teach kids because they're more flexible, or?
I actually haven't taught children hula, but I imagine they are. You know, when adults, we have so much on our mind, right? It's like all this cobwebs and all that stuff's in the way, and we need to clear all that stuff away to make room to learn something new, which a lot of people want to do, but the hard part is clearing all that stuff away. With children, their minds are so open and ease.
Right. And you bring up a very good point. We think of us adults being stiff physically, you know, but maybe it's not in the physical body. Maybe it's here that we're.
I think it's here. I don't think it's our bodies. I think it's our minds.
There's still hope for me.
Yes, our minds have to accept, you know, and open, and trust, and listen. Yeah, and if you can do that, then the learning will come.
I want to get to a few more questions here
Yeah.
that people have sent in. Most famous people you have ever met through hula, and that perhaps you wouldn't have expected to meet otherwise.
Other than John.
Other than yes.
John. Well, I can't think of off the top of my head. Let's see. Oh, Donard, I've met you, and I've never forgotten you, Donard.
We've tried.
I've tried, but you're irreplaceable in my mind, Donard. Who have I met that's like super famous? I met Hot Lips Hooligan one time. What was her name? You know, she was on MASH, the actress. Loretta Swift. Oh, and I met Neil Sedaka, who, you know Neil Sedaka? Mm-hmm. Down doobie doo down down, comma down. I met him, and he's such a fantastic guy, and he was sitting in the audience. And he was just so gracious, and people recognized him, and he sang for them, you know, and he shared his music. He actually came on the stage and sang for us. He asked me, well, what is your favorite song that I've written? And I said, Laughter in the Rain. You know that one?
I don't.
You don't? Strolling along country roads with my baby.
Yeah.
That one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, and he played it for us at the Halekulani.
Wow. Wow. Wonderful. Well, we're getting a lot of comments actually now about Iggy and perhaps an introductory lesson, which we'll save for the after show.
We'll save for the after show. I do have as a Miss Hawaii, I do have a story. You know, one of my very first few years here, out of the blue, I got this call from another Miss Hawaii, Kathy Foy. And she said, we're having Miss Hawaii, I forgot exactly what year, I think it was in the late 90s. We're having a Miss Hawaii competition in a few weeks or a couple months, I don't remember. And she asked, would you like to be a judge?
Ooh.
I'm like, me? Yes. No, and I had no idea why she would ask me. But I think
Because you have talent.
but it was
and
like,
you can recognize talent. That's why.
Anyway, so I think she asked me because one of the contestants was playing violin or something like that. So maybe for the talent show, but she probably would have been really nervous. But I couldn't make it because I was going out of the country. So I just, it's unfortunate, but there was. I like to tell that story to my classical musician colleagues because hey, I got invited to be a judge on Miss Hawaii. Anyway.
Well, you know, I've been asked to judge, but I'm a terrible judge. I really am. I'm terrible. I want everyone to win. I do. And it's like, you know, when after the person does their thing and it's like, you have to write down numbers score, you know. I have a really hard time. I break out. I just perspire. My hands get all sweaty. You know, I'm just a terrible judge.
How has Miss Hawaii changed throughout the past 40 years?
How has Miss Hawaii changed?
Yeah.
Well, I think that the look of the competition has changed, but I think the quality of the girl is still, and I'm prejudiced, is as lovely and accomplished and as talented as ever. And each girl that becomes the Miss Hawaii, Miss Hawaii America, very, very proud of them. We have a Miss Hawaii sisterhood. We usually meet at Christmas time. We get together at Mariposa,
Yes.
Neiman Marcus, and we all get together and we do an exchange of gifts. And I always feel so proud to be a part of that group.
Yeah.
I'm a senior member, of course, but you know, still, it's a lovely sorority to be a part of.
Sure.
So that part hasn't
Yeah.
changed.
Oh, that's wonderful. Really wonderful to hear. Okay, this is a question that I'm going to read verbatim because that's what I do. Doesn't hula keep oldsters supple? Please ask Kanoe that.
Yes, does.
Great.
Well, any kind of movement, walking, or any movement.
yeah.
But I think through hula, where you have to concentrate on, I'm going to say like connecting the dots, right? Connecting this line of thought to this emotion to these, connecting the dots and doing your hand motions to express the story is enough to keep you supple.
Yeah.
And of course you gotta, what did we say? The upper half has to stay still, the bottom half is the part that sways. Okay, that's definitely gonna keep the joints oiled up for sure.
Wonderful. Well, one last question here. Of course, everybody wants to know what we're drinking this evening. I believe Iggy's grabbing a glass. The show is not over, so I believe this is Four Graces.
Of the
from
Willamette
Willamette
Valley.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful.
Southern Oregon.
There you go. Quite the vinophile you've become over the past 40
know that
weeks.
part well.
I see. I see. Well, we are so looking forward to December 12th, the Sounds of the Season performance that you'll be joining us for under the direction of Iggy Jang as conductor and maestro and soloist and concertmaster all in one.
Well, Kanoe, very much looking forward to next
Thank
week.
you. Thank
And
you very much.
Thank you for joining us this evening for our conversation here. And thank you all for tuning in tonight, for tuning up. We'll be back next week and the week after that. And you just can't get rid of us here on Tuesdays tuning up. So thank you to our good friend Donard Sonoda behind the camera there, who we've referenced many times tonight. And of course, Greg Dunn at the Hawaii Theater Center. And Bob Dickerson on audio. And thank you again. We really appreciate you
This
joining
was fun.
us. Yeah.
This was fun. Thank you.
Well, thanks again. We'll see you soon. Thanks again for the support.